You've made the last 7 months of the year and you are here live and direct. Welcome on board. How are you? How is everything with your business? My name is Ayo Jimmy and this is Soap News, and you're welcome to Early Exchange, where we talk about business, the economy and developments. We are here essentially to shape policies and advance development of the African and other parts of the world. Blessing H is right beside me for us to do this together Monday to Friday, and we are starting just now. Blessing, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ayer. The last day of the month means different things to different people. For some who are salary earners, it means a lot with some coming. But for others, it is a time to take stock and look at how they've allotted time and resources over the last 30 days. Well, whatever you do, you need to evaluate those decisions you've made in the last 30 days. Are they quality decisions? This is a reminder that Early Exchange will enable you to make quality decisions because you provided perspective on economic and development matters.
Okay, so we start the usual way with updates of news around the world, happenings over the last 2 days since we were away from this particular show up till today. On the African continent, the ECOWAS sub-region has actually given the military junta in Niger Republic an ultimatum to reinstate the ousted president that was elected, or they face sanctions. Already there are enough sanctions on ground, and they're even threatening that there will be use of force if necessary. This and many more will form the bulk of what we're talking about today. But first and foremost, let us go to the newsroom where Ola Oluwawe is standing by as she brings us updates around the world. Good morning, Ola. You look very good this morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you very much. Hi, Jimmy. Blessing HA. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Ola.
Yes, this is the morning news update, and we're taking you around the world, say in less than 10 minutes or 15. I am Olalua Awe. We start from Nigeria. Stay tuned.
So yesterday was a momentous occasion for Ogun State as the Gateway Agro-Cargo International Airport successfully received its first commercial flight. The airport, situated along Iperi-Ileshan Road in Ikenne local government area, was initially envisioned during Benga Daniel's administration in 2005, but under the leadership of Governor Dapo Abiodun, the project was realized, and the first test flight marked a significant step towards obtaining full certification and licensing for safe aviation operations. Governor Abiodun said that the completed Gateway International Agro-Cargo Airport project will open up employment opportunities for about 25,000 unemployed youths in the state. The airport's development will also include the establishment of the Special Agro-Processing Zone, SAPS, in the metropolis. This ambitious project aims to boost agriculture and non-agriculture exports, leading to increased social and economic activities and ultimately contributing to the state's revenue generation. The National Bureau of Statistics recently released the Value-Added Tax (VAT) report for the first quarter of year 2023, showing a significant increase of 1.75% in comparison to the previous quarter. The total VAT collection rose from 697.38 billion naira in the fourth quarter of 2022 to 709.59 billion naira in the first quarter of 2023. The report also highlighted the key sectors that made substantial contributions to VAT collection during this period, with the manufacturing sector taking the lead, accounting for 29.65% of the total VAT collection, followed by information and communications sector at 19.29% and mining and quarrying at 12.24%. The breakdown of VAT payments for the first quarter of 2023 reveals that 436.10 billion naira was recorded as local payments, 151.13 billion naira as foreign VAT payments, and 122.37 billion naira contributed through import value-added tax. This data reflects positive growth in VAT collection, indicating potential economic progress and consumer spending during the first quarter of year 2023. Now, the World Bank is worried that if Nigeria doesn't have programs to help its people, an additional 7.1 million Nigerians could become poor because of the rise in prices. The bank says only about 19% of the population gets support from these social programs, and the financial powerhouse suggests investing in a strong system to help vulnerable families with cash transfers, advising that to make things better in Nigeria for the next 6 months, the country must keep improving its foreign exchange, that is the FX policy. The bank further suggested that FX restrictions on a list of 43 items must be removed, and clear communication about the new FX policy with a focus on a unified market-based rate must be ensured. To address inflation, it says Nigeria should continue reducing subsidized loans to medium and large firms from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Additionally, the government should stop borrowing money from the central bank and replace import and FX restrictions with tariffs aligned with the ECOWAS Common External Tariff. To maintain the removal of subsidies on premium motor spirits, PMS, that is petrol, the World Bank advises keeping prices deregulated, encouraging fair competition, and preventing any unfair practices to ensure consumers benefit from increased efficiency. The bank also recommended better tax collection and creating an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, has rejected the federal government's 25% increase to the consolidated medical salary structure. During their meeting in Lagos, the association's National Executive Council, NEC, issued a communique signed by its president, Orji Emeka Innocent, the Secretary General, Chikeze Kelechi, and Publicity and Social Secretary Umar Musa on Saturday, July 29. The doctors are standing firm on their original demand, which is the full restoration of the Consolidated Medical Salary Structure, the CMSS, to its 2009 value. They expressed strong disapproval of the 25% increment in basic salary and the accoutrement allowance, considering it to be inadequate. OG emphasized that a strike will continue until the government takes significant steps to address their demands as outlined in the early ultimatum. And away from that, the National Pension Commission, PENCOM, as in a statement posted on Twitter, denied allegations that its Director General, Mrs. Aisha Dahir Umar, received millions of dollars as escrow during the COVID-19 lockdown in 2020. This is in reaction to online reports suggesting such extravagant spending and providing documents to support the claims. However, PENCOM clarifies that no government official could claim foreign travel allowances in 2020 due to global travel restrictions and airport closures. The Commission asserts that all escrow payments are standardized and require rigorous documentation such as air tickets and stamped passport pages, which means even if the PENCOM boss spends 2 years continuously outside the country, her escrow allowances would not amount to millions of dollars. Still in Africa, in response to the military coup in Niger Republic, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has declared Niger a no-flight zone. This significant move, which includes air and land border closure, is seen as a crucial reaction to the recent ascendancy of the junta, which has stirred significant unrest in the country and poses a threat to political stability within the region. ECOWAS has also imposed immediate financial sanctions and set a one-week deadline for the junta to cede power, while not ruling out the possibility of using force if necessary. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the chairman of ECOWAS, at the emergency meeting held in Abuja yesterday, emphasized that Africa has matured and evolved, expressing its disapproval of attempts to disrupt democratic processes and political stability in the region. And the European Union, EU, has stopped working together with Niger on security matters because the country's army took control in a coup. This decision was made after the United States expressed its unwavering support for the ousted President Mohamed Bazoum, who was considered an important ally in the fight against Islamist militants. The leader of Niger's Presidential Guards Unit, General Abdurrahman Tchiani, declared himself the new leader on Friday, citing reasons such as insecurity, economic problems, and corruption for seizing power. However, there are concerns in the West about which countries the new leader will align with, especially given the examples of neighboring countries like Burkina Faso and Mali, which turned towards Russia after their own coups. The EU and the US and France have all refused to recognize the coup leaders and have taken measures like suspending security cooperation, budgetary aid, and development support to Niger. These actions shows their disapproval and concern over the situation in the country. And away from that, Kenya's government and opposition have agreed to hold talks to resolve their differences after a series of opposition protests over the rising cost of living and tax increases. According to the parliamentary majority leader of Kenya, Kwanza Kimani Ichung'wah, the opposition coalition Azimio la Umoja and the government coalition Kenya Kwanza will set up a team to discuss issues like the election commission's makeup and creating an office for the leader of the opposition. The talks will not cover recent tax changes as they are already in court. The appeals court lifted the suspension on a law that would double value-added tax on fuel and introduce a new housing levy. But further appeals may still be possible. Ghana's parliament has passed a bill to protect individuals accused of witchcraft, making it a crime to abuse them or force them out of their communities. The law was proposed to a lynching of a 90-year-old woman in July 2020, which led to red condemnation from local and international. In addition to the protection, the new bill was dismantling of makeshift camps individuals seek refuge after their communities. Amnesty International, around 500 people, mostly elderly, currently live in 5 of such parts of the country. The chairman of the Commission on Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Imadu Antwi, during the parliamentary session, implementation of this law could offer a legal free prosecute offenders and give victims to reintegrate into their community and unite with their families. The Dubai police have added 3 Jeep Grand Wagoneer patrol fleet. This move is part of its high-performance vehicles that increase their public presence. This shows as the Hurricane I-6 3.0 liter capacity significant. This makes them among the lineup, making them a perfect addition. In order to prevent an environment in the Middle East, effort is on to remove vessels safer, which has been 30 years with a million barrels of oil. Says a team it is leading is working spills or explosions. They operate $1 million and is funded by and some private companies. It will take about 19 days to finish. It's worth around $80 million. It's between the Houthi rebels and as well as internationally recognized government sides in the country's civil conflict. Guido Crosetto, as in an interview yesterday, criticized the country's decision. It's wicked. The Italian coalition in the program. The initiative BRI was created by China investing in global infrastructure. It aims in trade and economic growth. However, that the BRI has not been an initiative as involved significant but there are also concerns about its BRI as a way for China to the son of Colombia's president Nicolás has been arrested as part of an illicit enrichment according to Colombia investigation over allegations of his father's efforts to broker evacuation of health, the evacuation or the corridor to the intersection of Highway East and North along Highway 3 of utmost importance, and it is in time. Let us hope that the fire. And finally, on a positive note, it is possible you might have heard the movie as the movie and the United Clipper and Nicki Minaj and soundtrack would reach the top 8 history by having multiple songs to the track, and it's really excitement and albums of movie songs also returned to the chart, top spot, and Olivia Rodrigo's at number 2. Overall, the success of the Barbie movie soundtrack exemplary collaboration, strategic marketing, variety, and brand identity played even success in the business world. This update for today, I am Olaoluwa with the Early Exchange. Don't forget to follow us to social media platforms. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Olaoluwa, for updates in the world of news. And now back to Niger Republic, which are in the news for the wrong reasons since when the military junta seized power, ousted an elected president. ECOWAS member countries, they are not resting on their oars. They are strong leadership as they all right in Abuja over the weekend to show sense of direction and say, no, this will not stand. On the one hand, they have this moral responsibility to show direction because pain for all. Then, on the other side, also to correct this straight because in the last couple of years, in the last 3 years, some African nations have been doing this and they seem to be going away with it with any punishment whatsoever. And so this time around, they're saying, way you cannot go give the military junta 7 days ultimately to release the president and reinstate him honorably. Otherwise, they will go all out to sanction the country and even use if necessary. And we'll go to that use of force in the course of this discourse. By the way, let me just you once again on the show. Idausa, our internationalist, and he is the director of Research African Development Study Center. Is that on to you?
Good morning, Ayo.
All right, let me say
blessing. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I like the show, even though force has not yet been implemented, solutions, and giving a 7-day autumn shows that the ECOWAS this time would not tolerate things like a coup in any part of any country that is part of the body. My concern, however, is that formations that ECOWAS has given, air borders, declaring a no-flight zone, and so many other things. The response of the military, I fear, if it would not resolve brutal treatment to the citizens of Niger Republic. However, I think that it is good that ECOWAS is talking tough, but I think that should be exercised in applying some of these resolutions.
Well, as a good day for ECOWAS, and I think, like they say, leadership is everything. Don't forget that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has a track record in this direction, especially in 1993, our own election in Nigeria was annulled, and of course, he led men into the trenches to force the military to return to power. It took a line, and he was ready. He put everything in him into it. So it's not just a president who is speaking. He's actually came from experience. And if you look at the words he used in describing, he said it's an assault that must not be tolerated. And if he could fight John Chad with bare hands, now you can imagine what he will do, now sitting in a position of authority, and as the president of Nigeria, which is the dominant partner in US, and then as also the chairperson for the authority of head of states of ECOWAS. So I think it's something that had to be done. It's necessary. We should not encourage this kind of military takeovers in West Africa, where we're trying to consolidate on democracy. Really, there's no alternative to democracy. Peaceful transfer of power, peaceful exchange is all about. So when you introduce force and people are gagged, and of course, you find that we can actually not develop what he alluded to, that the atmosphere for development had to be a democratic environment and space.
And that message has to be well driven home. Otherwise, we'll be in anarchy across the African continent, which is a place we don't want to be. Okay, so let's move on. Let's come back home now to Nigeria.
So before you even get there,
okay,
you see, one of the challenge that I also want to speak on this ECOWAS issue is the role of the citizens of Nigeria. That really worries them. You see, ECOWAS can make their threats. But you see, in Niger, you see mass protest against the democratic system in support of the juntas. We were told yesterday the French embassy was attacked with a group of civilians who are chanting "Up Russia." This is a dimension I think ECOWAS need to also exploit. They are actually out now talking to Putin on some key economic issues. So you see, because there seems to be a support from the outside on this schooling. But you see, when citizens are rest in support of their own regime, difficult for the external parties to actually make impact. This has been demonstrated in you. Those small, commercial, but the citizens are fully in their government. And that's why the war in Ukraine carried this long. So we don't know the staying power of these men on the streets in Niger Republic who are chanting anti-French slogans and now anti-ECOWAS.
I think that is why whenever we have a democratic government in Africa doing the right things, providing the dividends of good governance is one thing to make people believe in the system, because it's good we talk about democracy, but what has democracy brought the people? Agreed, the one form of democracy is better than any form of military government, but do the people know this? Because it seems to be an alternative for them, and they may feel like it's better than what we've had before. So except that belief in democracy can be restored back to the people, this is when the cooperation of citizens can be enjoyed. So I think as much as ECOWAS is talking tough, in some way, a kind of irritation reaching to the citizens should go alongside to ensure that they have the cooperation of the citizens. Else it will just be you try to fight, and those who are inside say, we like what we have, and it's going to be a tough battle.
Yeah, communication is key when you want to support anywhere in the world. because the response of the citizens is actually a function of the narrative they've been fed. If they are being fed by a different narrative from some other quarters that is, not in line with what the president or what the nation wants, then they will react the way they are reacting. Somehow, something is not up here because ECOWAS is fighting the Nigerian Republic battle, so to speak. The people are not seeing it that way. They are even seeing ECOWAS as probably an enemy of states, which is sad in itself. I hope at some point.
But it's given because suffering is actually what is pushing this. When people are pushed to the war, it's sad that they are going to fight back, and I think that's what Blessing has alluded to. You see, when you have a government in place who has not been able to put on ground adequate mechanism to drive prosperity for its people, you can find it. Because when you are in a strait, any help can come from anywhere. So people are hopeful. But then, of course, it will not take time for them to that the juntas are empty. They are not for this.
Of course,
and they can actually not deliver good that they are expecting from them.
Well, we hope that peace and a democratic system of government is restored to Nigerian Republic soon, so the influence of coup and overs doesn't spread across Africa. And then let's look at a global issue now, talking about global warming. So according to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, it's no longer global warming, it's now global boiling, because in the month of July, temperatures and reached a record high, and so it's like the warmest 3-week period on record in the month of July, talking about climate change and its effect on us all, because we live in the earth. I used to say that we don't have any other planet that we can have.
At least for now.
I think
global warming. We have to stop paying lip service to this of climate change plan, because I remember that at some point there was energy crisis in the West. Some countries went back and they were using fossil again because of the crisis in the energy sector, and that's like taking 5 steps forward and like 10 steps backward, which will other nations to say, okay, what are you saying is global warming? Maybe it's not really real, and it will shock you that even among some scientists, some don't believe. Just last year at a particular conference, 1,000 scientists said that global is not a global emergency. Climate change is not a global emergency in a particular article, and that was because a lot of them have told us times that number that we are in crisis. I think the world needs to come to a point of action, and we should agree that we should pay lip service. This is real. Flooding everywhere.
You see, I think the real reason why they are saying so, it may not be that it's not an emergency. It's just the fact that what we have in recent time is the fact that the natural causative factors to the depletion of ozone is more than what science is prescribing in CO2 and its effect on the ozone. So the more we try to stop it, the more we see things happening. So people are wondering, are we really sure that these things that we are even turning our energy to are actually the actual cause of the warming? So there's a need for more research, for people to actually be able to actually find out what is actually responsible. Don't forget, the firmament is created by Almighty God, and so He only can determine what kind of element can deplete it, really.
Like they say, there is more than meet the eye. It's just like the iceberg. What lays under the water, what's under the water is more
Than,
to see on
on
the
the
surface.
top of the water.
Okay, that is where we'll rest the segment of this show. Let us take a short break now. When we return, we'll take a deep dive into one of the we have lined up today. We are looking at the practice of advertising in Nigeria in the digital. Don't go anywhere. once you can run some ads online, you are there. So now, the erosion of the middleman in the world of advertising is both an opportunity and a threat to the practice of advertising. And there are lots of issues there that we will talk about when we have our guests.
Well, I don't think the role of the middleman has completely been eroded, because these days you have people who are into social media advertising, social media marketing. They are a sort of middlemen because they come into the space where businesses and even individuals who want to put their products or services out there cannot do it. So they help with know-how, and it's different from what you have in the past.
It is very different, really. But then it will shock you to know that a lot of people are getting to know how to do it by themselves. They call it do-it-yourself advertising, because everybody seems to be a media company now, in a way. Before now, you need a transmitter and a full broadcast house to broadcast, but now with your phone, you are beaming live to the people. From your house. The house here can also, beam live from his phone, and you can advertise. And you've been in this field before. How has this affected the world of advertising, essentially speaking?
Greatly. Web 3.0 had changed the way things are done globally. Now, content is no longer one way. Content is now two way. So people sit at home, they generate their content. And even reach is farther than what the TVs and these other traditional means. Because, of course, you see, people get on billboards, you put ad on billboard, you put ad on TV, they are becoming very expensive, and at a very cheap rate, people can do on social media, and then they still get their mileage and their leverage. So it's making actually the association of the advertising practitioners really becoming redundant to a very large extent for me.
Well, there is an agency that regulates advertising practice in Nigeria. This morning we'll be talking with Mr. Chukwudi Iziaba, who is the head of legal and executive assistant to the Director General of the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria, ARCON. He's also the secretary to the Advertising Standards Panel, ASP, and the secretary to the Advertising Practitioners Investigating Panel, APIP, among others. So good morning, Mr. Chukwudi Iziaba. If you're there, just say hello. Hello, Mr. Chukwudi, can you hear me?
Can you please unmute yourself? We can't hear you.
We still can't hear you. Please unmute your mic so we can hear you and have the conversation. Okay, before he gets to do that, you should know that the digital age, which has resulted in social media advertising, enables businesses target the audience for which they're advertising and accurately measure results. There are so many ways in which advertising can be done, but Mr. Chukwudi will be telling us about the most popular of them and the ethical way to go about it, because there are things you cannot just put out there simply because you want to advertise. It may be offensive to other persons. Consider the space in which you're advertising. There are different social media platforms. You have Facebook, you have Instagram, and so on. So these platforms themselves have rules that you need to adhere to even while you do your advertising. Hello, Mr. Chukwudi. Can you, have you unmuted your mic now? Just say hello. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Can you speak, Mr. Chukwudi?
Hello.
Oh, we still can't hear you.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Please, if you can hear us, just unmute your mic so we can proceed with the conversation.
Okay, while we wait for Mr. Chukwudi and the technical team to resolve the issue there, now you were talking about the major changes in the world of advertising.
Yes.
Now, one key change has been the ability to measure the return on investment on advertising. Before now, when you placed your slot on a TV station, for instance, or a radio station, for instance, you may be limited about determining how many people watched your advertising, yes, how many people listened to your advertising on radio, as the case may be. But now we have metrics that you can use to gauge the effectiveness or otherwise of your advertising budget. You can determine how many people can actually, access this advertising. It's no longer like filing blank once again, and that has been one argument in strong favor of, digital advertising. Apart from that, you are able to, create what we call real-time analytics and analyze how much of, effectiveness your ads are, because it is one thing to, just place ads on a particular platform. It is another to be able to determine whether it is doing that you want it to do. For instance, it could be like just brand awareness advertising, or it could be, to take action. These days, they are saying that while we have a lot of success in the world of digital advertising, is that you are able to, analyze for real what impact your ad spend is having on that.
Yeah, that's a great, how do I put it now, success that the digital advertising had actually created. Because in the old traditional means of advertising, you just put it there, and of course you have to guess. And that's why you are looking at it, what slot, who should be at home, who should watch. So they all guesswork. But it's now becoming more pragmatic, that people can actually put figures to those who watch, and you can actually also look at it and do a serious analytics, whether you're actually reaching your target audience. It's not just who watch. You can look at the age demographics. You can look at even the social class.
Essentially.
Yes, from the analytics that you get from this, and you know who watched you, who saw what you posted, who had reviewed it. And all these things is actually making it very interesting, and that is why a lot of people are actually moving toward these new means of reaching out to target us in terms of building brands.
Well, digital advertising is not without challenges. One of them is the use of ad blockers. Some sites, when you go to some sites, you just find that you're being flooded with so many advertisements, and some persons want to block the ads. It makes it ineffective for those who actually advertise that particular product or item, because when it is blocked, the person does not want to be getting ads from that site, or getting ads on that site. And there's also abuse, because when you do advertising on conventional media, talking about radio, television, and even print, the content of your advertising are screened. There are certain things you can't just put out there because you're advertising, things that mislead people, information that is false. But on social media, there's actually no control as such on such things. So anybody could put information out there that is not completely correct, or that is misleading, all in the means to get people. So these are some of the challenges that we're having on the social space when it comes to advertising. But because we have Akron, we'll be speaking with them and asking what effort they're ensuring to do that the regulation you have on the conventional space, it is also there in the digital space.
The issue of regulation of the media space in terms of digital advertising is a critical one. I recall a couple of months ago when in Nigeria here, it was said that, okay, for those who want to place ad on social media, they must come through the normal vetting process that you go through when you want to do conventional advertising. But then the question is, how is it done elsewhere in the world? Because it is not just a Nigerian thing. Globally, people are advertising online, and like I tell you, it becomes a very big task to really regulate, online advertising. How many people do you monitor per time, and what will be the vetting process? These and many more were the issues that came to the front line when the talk of regulation came on board.
Yeah, you see, it's not just about advertising alone. It's just that the way of doing things globally has changed. Even governments are losing their powers. Ability to regulate in Industry 5.0 is going to be a tough challenge. So government are not as effective, as powerful as they used to be. Neil wrote a book, and he said the end of power. Power is disappearing because we are seeing new blocks emerging, and things that people that were usually not relevant before, today they are becoming more important, because you really cannot have an oversight over these people. So there's little or nothing that can actually be done in this space. So what is important is that the practitioners will continue to struggle and strive and see how they can put the entire space under control. And some of all these things may need some legislation, which of course had to, but then to what extent will you be able to monitor somebody you don't see and somebody you don't know?
All right, let's see if we can have that conversation with Mr. Chukwudi, who is from Akwa. Are you there, Mr. Chukwudi? Can you please hear us this time around? Let's. Hello, good morning.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning. Can you hear me now?
I still can't hear you. Oh, man. Can you please say
If you
something?
can hear
Can you
me,
please
thank you
unmute
for having me
yourself?
today. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear now. Thank you. Finally, thank you for the patience. We'll get
right,
through
thank
this.
you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Okay, we have just maybe like 10 minutes or there about to have this conversation because we spent some time doing this. Now, let me ask you, this day when you have a lot of people pretending to be advertisers, everybody who can push one button or another on Facebook or on Instagram claims to be an advertiser. Who is a true advertising practitioner, and what stands him out from the rest?
Well, you are very, very correct. You're going by the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigerian Act. Section 21 specifically states who an advertising practitioner is and how the person is to be registered. Advertising profession in Nigeria is taken as a full-fledged profession with statutory backing. Not letting every Tom, Dick, and Harry into the practice is what the Act tries to regulate. With the digital media, everybody who can talk, who can do skits, who can do anything, jumps into the advertising realm, claiming to be an advertising practitioner, claiming to be a voiceover artist, claiming to be a model. This is not right and is not what the Act intends it to be. There is a specific rule, a specific guidance in accordance with Section 21 of the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigerian Act on who professional advertising practitioners should be.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
so from Archon to Archon, a name change. So what does it mean actually that you moved from Archon to Archon? And how is the agency going about regulating advertising to make sure that advertisers adhere to ethical practices? Understand that this is the social media age.
Well, a lot have been incorporated into the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigerian Act. There are certain provisions, very many of them, that were, in fact, the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigerian Act is not an amendment to the Advertising Practitioners Registration Act of 1988, or rather 2004. The Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigerian Act is repealed completely the Advertising Practitioners Registration Act before it reenacted the current act as it is. There are new introductions into the act to cater for what was lacking in the APCON Act as it then was. The introduction of the Advertising Offences Tribunal, AOT, is a very prominent one that features in the Act. And this intends to regulate, or rather try offenses committed by non-advertising practitioners or advertising practitioners themselves who have committed offenses under the Act or against the Code of Advertising Practice. The powers given to the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria is vast. It is a whole lot more comprehensive, going by the dynamics which we witnessed in the advertising industry in the past. And we understand that with digital age, there are certain things that may not have been foreseen now, which will come into play in future. The Act intends to, as much as possible, try to protect the interests of consumers in that regard. And at the same time, it tries to bring in professionalism in this industry.
Okay, thank you for speaking to that, Mr. Chukwudi. I know that the dragnet of ACON is always out there to, grab those who are into unethical ad practices in Nigeria. Has there been any conviction whatsoever to show deterrent to others who are trying to, come into that space and do the unlawful? Anybody convicted already?
Well, I would say not yet. Reason being that most of them, once we communicate to them, they would rather have the matter settled instead of going to court. But in the instant case, with the Advertising Offences Tribunal being on board, once an offence is committed, once the AOT kicks off, because it was inaugurated shortly before the end of the last administration by the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture then, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. So the preliminary stage is what we are putting up together right now. But we are looking at having these matters go through the tribunal that has the jurisdiction to try criminal matters. And in the near future, we believe that we'll start seeing convictions on advertising offenses.
Sir, how does ad fraud affect the digital advertising ecosystem, and what steps can people take to protect themselves, even as they're online, maybe checking for products and services to buy, or just doing their business?
We have observed that there are a lot of fraudulent activities going on in the digital media space in the name of advertising. Ordinarily, what would not be approved by the Advertising Standards Panel, which is a panel established by Section 53 of the Act to vet and approve advertisement prior to exposure. Most of those ads you see that are contravening the provisions of the Act and are indecent, they don't go through the approval or vetting by the Advertising Standards Panel. These are materials that ordinarily wouldn't be exposed in the traditional media, being the television, radio, TV, billboard, but they find their way into the social media because anybody who have access to internet or who can do skits or do anything feels that is a free world out there. They target consumers. Sometimes you see people who tell you that they have properties to sell, whereas there's nothing there to sell. They may end up telling you pay 50%, 50,000 naira non-refundable deposit, and pay the rest at 1 million per month for 12 months. What they're after is the non-refundable deposit, not the initial money you pay for the property. When you make claims, they'll come back and pay you what you paid and tell you that the other one is not refundable. Now, those things are dubious. They are very, very wrong. What we try to do is to see that we have expand our capacity in order to get these things regulated. We are trying to talk to the primary digital media space owners so that we could have a way to curtail this. There are some indecent ones that I can't even mention because of the platform with which we are speaking now.
All right.
You'll see ads that has to do with medical terms and for health use, not approved by by NAFDAC. They go out there to sell them. They'll tell you that they cure all manner of illnesses. Just one medication. Right. Curing all manner of illnesses.
All right, Mr. Chukwudi, because we still have some other topics to cover here, some other bases to cover. Let me just ask you, this is a 2-in-1 question anyway. First, you spoke of a particular tribunal the other time. When is it likely going to start? That's the first one. And how easy do you think you can regulate, when I say you, I mean ACON can regulate online advertising in a country like Nigeria, given all the challenges that we have?
Well, the Advertising Offences Tribunal, technically speaking, has gotten to an advanced stage. What is left is for them to have the inaugural sitting. As it stands now, we have some finishing touches to do. The chairman of the tribunal, Honorable Justice Cecilia Olatunji, has been working tremendously. Members of the tribunal too are working very, very hard to see that we will start operations within the shortest possible time. Then the other aspect to it is that we understand that the digital space is wide, very, very wide, and we hope to get there. Is something we're going to take one step at a time.
All right, a change from APCON to ACON was welcomed by some and also criticized by others. For those who have criticized this, the fear is that ACON wants to make some money. Vetting of adverts, is it going to cost a fee and make it more expensive now to do advertising in the digital space?
Vetting of advertisement in the digital space is not going to be expensive. To start with, it's not even expensive as it stands now. The normal vetting fee is just 25,000 naira, and the duration, the lifespan of approval given is 1 year, 12 calendar months. But for digital media, because of the frequency and the currency of time, the amount has been reduced for digital space to 15,000 or even as low as 7,000 for the nano, micro and small scale, medium enterprises. So the fears of those who say that it's going to be expensive, I don't think it's expensive. ACON is not regulating to strangulate. What we want is to have a safe environment, a safe advertising industry, and a safe advertising space that consumers can trust.
Okay, Mr. Chukwudi, I do know that ACON tries to conduct training for those who are already in the practice so they can be certified. But then there comes the question of affordability of the training and certification. People are saying that sometimes these are priced beyond the reach of an average Nigerian. What is ACON doing to ensure that the cost of training and certification to become a certified practitioner comes down and becomes bearable?
ACON training in different categories. We have trainings that are free. We carry out trainings we do free of charge. The ones that we charge fee are specific. Sometimes when you have training for CEOs, some of them quite true are free. We organize even virtual trainings. The ones that are cost effective, that require payment, are actually the ones that we looked at and find that there are cost implications which the council would not, or rather is not expected to bear by itself. But for those that are very crucial and very important to the society, we try as much as possible to run them on a very minimal fee or free of charge, especially those we do virtually, and we do them very, very often.
All right, quickly now, aside regulating the advertisers, is ACON also regulating the advertising platforms? Because in conventional media, we have this practice where you cannot advertise rival brands back to back. And there are some, you also cannot advertise the same kind of brand back to back. So you need to have some practice, you need to advertise it in a way that you don't confuse the consumer. So what is ACON doing to ensure that the brands are also safe? You don't have a dangerous or something that is harmful content going side by side other brands, or you don't have a rival brand being advertised side by side a particular brand for effectiveness?
Yes, yes. It is also contained in the Nigerian Code of Advertising Practice, and it has been part of our professional ethics. You don't advertise competing products back to back, and not only that, there are certain advertisements, especially alcoholic beverage brands. You don't advertise on the broadcast media within a specific time frame, and you don't advertise such in motion picture billboards within a specific time frame. These are the things we put up. We try to, as much as possible, to regulate in order to ensure fair competition. The back-to-back exposure, ACON regulates that, and again, the National Broadcasting Corporation that regulates the television and radio broadcast media is guarding against it as well.
But are you
It is
able
not
to
what
do that
is
in the
expected.
digital space? Are you able to do that regulation in the digital space?
To be frank, it is difficult. That is the unprofessionalism we see. There are a lot of shenanigans in the digital space, which we hope that soon enough we will, as sensitize people, we will educate them to understand the dangers in it, to let them understand that it's even detrimental to their own product and services. It's not in their best interest. Forgetting the criminal aspect of it, or rather how the law has criminalized it, but to help the consumers, to help business owners, to help the advertisers itself, it is not in their best interest. We will get there.
All right.
We will get there.
I can only say amen. We'll get there. I believe in ACON, and all of us will be happy when things are sanitized in the advert space. Thank you very much, Mr. Chukwudi Eziama. And that is just that on the practice of advertising in this digital age. Okay, we'll go on a very short break now. And when we return, we'll be looking at the culture of savings and investments in Africa and beyond. Don't go away.
What comes to mind when you hear that over 40 million people are trapped globally in human trafficking? Worse still, 7 out of 10 victims are women, while 3 are children. These are helpless, vulnerable individuals forced into labor, sex work, marriage, or organ harvesting. The pains are better imagined than experienced, it has been said. But the United Nations is not leaving it to imaginations, as every July 30th has been set aside to wage war against this inhuman act. It is called World Trafficking Day. This year's theme, Reach Every Victim of Trafficking, Leave No One Behind, is a call to action to identify all victims regardless of their circumstances and to ensure they are protected. This is a response to the disturbing developments and trends of increasing ineffectiveness and impunity, as noted by the United Nations. Research has it that the annual economic cost of human trafficking is $150 billion, going to the traffickers who exploit and abuse their victims for self-financial gains. The war against human trafficking is real, but the traffickers seem to adapt to different schemes, new strategies, and technology, which aid them to avoid the dragnet of law. This is a major concern for the rest of the world, who long for a day when no one would be in captivity. As organizations, activities, and governments unite to address this problem and launch campaigns to educate the public to break the silence around this crime, strengthening existing laws or renewal can further enhance capturing strategies and punishment for traffickers, while implementing proper protection for victims, rehabilitation process, and empowering survivors can help them come out of their traumatic experiences. The World Traffic Day is just once a year, but conversations and usable actions must continue all year long until every victim is reached and no one is truly left behind in the dungeon. Grace Komalafe, Souk News.
Today is World Day Against Human Trafficking. Now, human trafficking is a serious crime that violates the rights of millions of persons around the globe. It is estimated that about 25 million persons are trafficked every year. You need to understand that anyone can be trafficked regardless of your age, race, or gender. Now, this year's theme, the theme for this year's World Day Against Human Trafficking in Persons is Reach Every Victim of Trafficking, leave no one behind. Now, this underscores the importance of identifying victims of human trafficking and offering them help. This is one area that is very challenging, identifying victims of human trafficking, because of the nature in which some persons are trafficked, and then the subjection that they are under, being forced to do labor, being exploited sexually. A lot of them are filled with so much fear that to even reach out to authorities is a problem. And some have grown to the extent of even become traffickers themselves.
Actually, it's sad. What man does against man, it's a crime against humanity. And I think it's a kind of jungle behavior. It's in the jungle that you have dog eating dog, lion eating lion, or what have you. Now, when human beings are feeding and feasting on the naivety of other human beings to make money and put them in detention, quote and unquote, then it is sad. Now, that report, it was said there that 7 out of every 10 victims happen to be, women, while 3 happen to be children. That means at every point in time, someone's mother is somewhere in captivity, someone's daughter is somewhere in captivity. For how long can this stand? All because of what? All because of pecuniary gains, because of what will line your pocket. And I think this thrives on poverty. See, one of the reasons you have human trafficking prevalent in this part of the world, in Africa, is the fact that people are seeking greener pastures out there. And so these traffickers come to you without any suspicion. They come as actually angels to take you away from your village to maybe somewhere in town or even across the borders of the country. And along the routes, something happens. The narrative changes, and you begin to wonder, how did we get here? There was a time when, if you remember, one young lady was trafficked to, I've forgotten the country now, and she was able to reach out to us back in Nigeria. When I say us, to the Nigerian government via a post, a social media post, and she was rescued. Now, the question is, how many more like her don't even have access to phone at this point, because those who traffic you will not allow you to have access to phone. That's just it.
Yes, I was going to say that she was quite lucky to even have access to a device with which she could communicate or cry for help. Sometimes these victims are deprived of whatever communication device that would enable them to reach out to authorities. Some of them are even kept in places that they cannot even identify their location or tell where they are. So it's a serious problem. You mentioned poverty. True, that is one reason that has facilitated human trafficking, because the traffickers cash in, or they just exploit the fact that these persons are vulnerable because of because they are underprivileged, and so they offer them help. Imagine going to a village and then you just going to a family where you know that it's hard for them to send their children to school, and you offer to send their child to school if their child would come live with you. This is one way in which a lot of children have been captured and trafficked to other parts of the world for forced labor. And even for women too, some of them come in forms of aid, in forms of wanting to help better their lives, and so they are trafficked to other areas. So it's a problem. And you know that human trafficking is an organized crime. So it's not something that is done single-handedly by one person. For some, it's just one person running it, but a lot of times it's a group. It's a syndicate. Yeah, so like it's really hard to clamp on the syndicate, and because they use intimidation, they use all sorts of methods to subdue their victims. Okay. Even as far as oath-taking, they subject some of their victims to oath-taking, and this puts fear in them.
They get kind of hypnotized to believe that if you speak about this, you are dead. Meanwhile, there in captivity, you are as good as dead in a particular context. Now, it takes two to tango, like they say. Now, focus has always been on the supply side of the equation. What about the demand side of the equation? Now, what do I mean?
Very true.
Now, what do I mean? If there is nobody demanding cheap labor anywhere, there wouldn't be anybody supplying it, because many of these trafficked human beings are taken to other parts of the world for cheap labor. You know that you really are not paying them what they deserve as human beings. You still do it. Many are trafficked for organ harvesting, which is sad. And now there comes the issue of poverty on the continent of Africa, where this is prevalent. You see a lot of people living here because they believe that, yeah, it can get better for them out there. We have to get to a point where we begin to take care of our own people and, you know, appeal to our psychology to realize that there is prosperity everywhere in the world. Even in the midst of poverty in Africa, as the case may be, or as it is being said, there are people that are very prosperous and they are doing it in legitimate times. They are not really, you know, they're not cutting corners. They are making meaningful money that are quite, you know, legit. So it's about reorientation of this continent as a whole.
A serious reorientation has to be done, not just by the Nigeria Orientation Agency, but by different stakeholders, communities, civil society organizations, NGOs, even families have to begin to reorient their children and their family members. You know, some parents actually push their children, push their wards into accepting offers from traffickers. Some persons even know that those who come to them offering up traffickers, they willingly submit themselves to be trafficked because they think that the grass is greener over there, only for them to get there and then they find that the premises are not what they envisaged. It's a different ball game entirely. So it's something that has to be a collective effort into reorienting people to begin to think that sometimes what you think is a greener pasture is just because you were not there yet. When you get there, it's going to be a different thing. And if you can even put in that energy, the risk people are willing to take to be trafficked, the route in which traffickers take these people through, very, very, very dangerous.
Okay.
Sometimes they are not even fortunate enough to get to
the their promised land,
greener pasture, not to begin to talk about begin working there.
And I'm not sure anybody would tell them up front that you are being trafficked.
Some of them know.
They know they're being trafficked.
Some of them know and willingly submit themselves.
Okay.
But they think that it is just a means to an end. They think
that when they get there, they will
see
just
it as trafficking per se. They see it as somebody wants to take me abroad. And I'm going to pay for it.
That's why I said.
They submit themselves to oath taking. They submit themselves to the agreement of secrecy, keeping it in secrecy. So, and they submit themselves to the terms of payment. But what they do not understand that sometimes they're not being told exactly how it's going to run. Okay, let's even leave that aside. Let's look at the home front here. Because when we speak about trafficking, it is assumed that it's about taking them away from the shores of this country. People are being trafficked within the country. There is intra-country trafficking. You get people from one part of the country, from a remote part of the country to the cities. They are trafficked here now. Now, people just believe, okay, they are coming to town for better opportunities. Now, part of that is this. What about the law enforcement capabilities in Nigeria? We've had people that have been arrested because of abuse of their so-called domestic labor. Okay, a lot of gruesome things have been done to, you know, all these cheap labor that they have. But beyond the first reporting in the papers that, okay, this person has been arrested, what has happened? Because if injustice is not seen to be rewarded in like times, it will continue. People get emboldened when they say that, okay, it's just about getting arrested and that's the end of it. Or after a while, I will bribe my way out of it. So this now comes to the issue of, you know, law and corruption. Our law has to stand clearly, and it shouldn't be tainted by corrupt practices, because there are good law enforcement officers here in this country, but there are bad ones. But the few bad ones are, like, you know, staining the good ones that exist, and we have to wage war against those ones to ensure that we bring this thing to an end domestically before we even talk about, you know, going abroad. The thing is that intra-country trafficking is treated with levity, sometimes because of human face and sometimes because of familiarity. Familiarity in the sense that because we're all Nigerians, for instance, someone was trafficked maybe from one state to another, and the person that they're living with is maltreating them. So just take it as a domestic issue. Oh, don't maltreat the person. Oh, take the child back to their family, and then it ends there. So it's a slap on the wrist, and that's where it ends. It's only when it becomes an it's of international nature that we tend to take it seriously. And even when it's of international nature, it's the international agencies that actually treat it as such. So I think it's a call on NAFTIP to begin to act.
I agree. And it's not a conversation we can have alone here. And that is why we have standing by via Zoom Mr. Daniel Atokolo, who is the Director of Investigation, National Agency for Provision of Persons, of Trafficking in Persons. Mr. Daniel, let's establish that you can actually see us and hear us clearly. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the studios of Early Exchange. Good morning, Mr. Daniel.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I was off because of connection problem, but I'm back now. Thank you.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine. We can understand. Thank you for even honoring our call in the first place. Let me start by asking you now: what are the main factors that are contributing to trafficking in persons in Nigeria and in Africa as a continent?
You see, so many factors at play. Let me take it from widespread poverty. You see, people are getting more and more desperate to make ends meet. By this condition, they are open to anything. And let us know that the crime of human trafficking is fueled with a large dose of deception. People are deceived, thinking that things are going to get better where they are going. Most of the time, they don't have all the information they need. They don't have all the facts. Again, you are talking about unemployment, pervasive unemployment. Many people, it is common in our climate here, that people can finish university education and even other forms of education, and they can stay unemployed for years. At this level, they become very desperate. Again, we are talking of the skills, lack of requisite skills for employment. The season we are now, the kind of education that will make you to be able to compete, you need the requisite skill in technology, in ICT. So generic education to some extent is no more what is in vogue. You need basic education that can help you to get employed. And if you talk about this unemployment, it's terrible. Because of this, people try to do anything to make ends meet. They try to survive at all costs. Again, we're talking of peer pressure, this Japa syndrome we're talking about these days. People just believe that if they go out, things will get better. But the grass is always not as green as you think on the other side. Again, we're talking about the lack of social safety net in the country. In the past, our life was more communal, where everybody's child, a child is for everybody. Now in Nigeria, you see that people are getting more nuclear. They look at what concerns them alone. And if you say you are taking care of only your children, there are several people who cannot fend for themselves. These people are now available. They become manipulatable segment of the society that anything can happen to them. Again, you are talking of ignorance. If people are to know that where they are taking them to, they are going to be horrendously exploited, they will not go. Again, like I said, deception. Some few people go and are able to come back, and they live a particular kind of glamorous lives, and they use it to not trap other people. So a lot of factors combine together to make it as if it's a trend. People are trafficked just like that because the major things that they want to make ends meet, and they don't get along very well. Again, you are talking about lack of basic social infrastructure. Honestly, there are some people, if they have the basic things of life in their environment, they will not go anywhere. Talk about a tailor who needs a little bit of electricity to do her work, the artisans, the welders, the saloonists. If they have light, some of them will stay back. But when everything they need to make life meaningful is not available, this segment of people are manipulatable. So I think for now, those are the major things that is making it look as if things are better when they leave their area. If not.
All right, now when some persons have left in pursuit of greener pastures and then they realize that they've been trafficked and they begin to live in subhuman conditions, what are the measures that NAPTIP is putting in place to ensure that they identify these people or they make it easy for them to report? Because some want to report, but they're not sure that they'll be protected from the traffickers.
Well, you see, at NAPTIP, what we do is continuous sensitization. People have to know where there are helplines. People have to know areas to go to. And we do it by radio, by television, by jingles, by ICT, on social media platforms. In NAPTIP, according to our current DG, she's talking about social media for social good. We are using the social media to let people know where to go to. Again, there's collaboration most of the time between the law enforcement agencies. We do interagency collaboration, security liaison. Go to the nearest police station, go to the nearest NAPTIP office, go to the nearest civil and Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps. Go to every area. There are NGOs, there are civil society organizations that are now available to help people where to go to, where to report to. If you report, you can get help. But most of the time, even the people we are talking about, they are psycho-conditioned, they are kept in a particular environment where they are not even able to have access to the external world. People like that, how do we do except we get to know? And then by information, we get to know, then we storm the areas. Even those who are taken abroad, with the help of, with NAPTIP working with several international bodies and law enforcement agencies at the other side, no place is unreachable to us now. Even when you're abroad, we have a way of reaching you. Just let us know. The major thing is speak to NAPTIP or speak to people who know what to do.
Okay.
Speak to people who have access to areas where you can get help, and then we try to reach you.
All
and
right.
when we reach you, the first thing to do is to rescue you from the exploitative environment. We are talking of safe havens. We are talking of embassies where people can run to, and then help will come to them.
Okay, sir. Let's look at the effectiveness of the operation of NAPTIP. I would assume you don't have it completely free of challenges, for want of a better expression. What challenges are facing NAPTIP in executing his mandate, and how can we really overcome this? What are the bottlenecks that you find in identifying and rescuing trafficked human beings in Nigeria?
Okay, let's start with identification. Like I said, first and foremost, people that are being exploited are most of the time kept in environments where help is difficult for them. Again, they don't have access to how to reach the outside world. It's a problem. Again, when we rescue victims of human trafficking, the offense of human trafficking will continue to thrive until there is prosecution. We need to make examples of offenders to show people that trafficking does not pay. But how do you prosecute if the victims or the families at times are not even cooperating? You will see that once victims are rescued, NAPTIP is in the process of prosecution. No matter how far you have gone with prosecution, at times you see families coming up to say they don't want any longer, they don't want the case any longer, they don't want stigmatization. So these are problems. Again, society has to come together to make sure we protect victims of human trafficking. But most of the time, the major way we have problem is if the victims are not ready to talk. The victims must speak out. If something is happening to you, you speak out. If you speak out, there will be help for you. We work with other security agencies. We work with NGOs. We have people we can talk to. We have people where we cannot reach, other people are there to reach out, but the victim herself or himself must speak to us or come out, and then help will come to you.
Addressing the demand side of human trafficking, there are businesses that are supported by human trafficking. Isn't that the first place to start in terms of identifying victims of human trafficking?
Come again, please.
There are businesses that are supported by human trafficking. Now, in addressing the demand side, isn't that the first place to start in identifying victims of human trafficking? Because these victims are trafficked for cheap labor and sexual exploitation. There are businesses that are supported by these. Isn't that the first place to start, identifying those businesses, and then you identify victims of human trafficking?
Well, it is good to go to that angle. But again, we're talking of victims typology. In the area of industrial use of human beings, we're talking of refined labor laws. Even if you are recruiting labor, and as an industry, you are bringing cheap labor, the laws must apply. When you start paying people subnormal wages, you know that that is trafficking, exploitation of people's labor. So we have to do, the government must fine-tune the labor laws in their respective countries. The government must abolish the use of human beings as slaves. Slavery has been abolished so many years ago, several hundreds of years ago. So labor laws is important. And then supervision of the industries. The ministries of labor or whatever they are called in other countries should make sure that the industries that operate within their climate adhere to human-friendly labor laws. And those who are bringing people for recruitment, they should check them. Again, if you come to a client where people are working, ask questions. Even the people, at times it's not difficult to see victims, to recognize victims of human trafficking. Are they free to move around? When people are trafficked, they are a little bit caged. They are talking to you, they're checking their back. Do they have access to their earnings? Is somebody collecting their money? How can you employ somebody and when you are paying, somebody comes to collect the money? Again, do they look like people who are not free? Some of them have wounds. Some of them are highly subjected to horrendous exploitation. And it will show on their faces. It will show by their psyche. It will show by the way they operate. So when you notice people like this, then they are likely people that have been trafficked. Some people have no freedom to move from where they are working. They are placed in that place, no matter how bad the condition is, they cannot move. So these are places you can check for people who have been trafficked. And when they are identified, what happens to those companies or industries that they are being used? There should be sanctions for them for running a slave camp. It is inactive. We believe that the fight against human trafficking is for the whole of the government and the whole of society. Everybody coming together to join hands. People should be able to speak out. If a factory behind you is using people roughly, speak out, because most of those times, these people cannot talk. We know of factories where people are locked up. They can't even go out. They work 24/7. They cannot go out. That is a sign that human beings are being trafficked there. Speak out, give out information. The good thing about our job is that we do source protection. Just talk to us and we go there. There are companies using people roughly. There are companies who are not paying enough wages. And they cannot say they're not aware that those human beings they are paying are trafficked, because you should pay fair wages for a fair job done.
Okay, sir. Let's look at cross-border collaboration, because people are trafficked from one state to another and from one country to another. How should the government collaborate with law enforcement agencies to ensure that we have cross-border supervision that is efficient, such that we can dismantle this traffic network?
Thank you. Okay, like the crime of human trafficking is not just across the border, even internally, from state to state, people are trafficked. And if you are talking of across the borders, most of the time, to fight human trafficking effectively is we should be able to rescue the victims. We should be able to repatriate the victims, work with other agencies to repatriate victims. And then we should be able to prosecute. In the course of prosecution, we must be diligent at the prosecution to target, in fact, the process of crime of human trafficking. As long as people know that whatever they do, when they are caught up, when the law enforcement agencies get hold of them, they'll be thoroughly prosecuted, especially denial of the process of crime. And to do this effectively, Nigeria, NAPTIP on behalf of Nigeria government, goes around signing mutual legal assistance with foreign countries, especially perceived destination countries. When we sign MLA with them, this is all embracing. A lot of things can be done. Prosecution, investigation, repatriation, rescue of the victims, bringing them back, and the victims will be brought back with human dignity. They will not be allowed to be brought back without their properties. Some of them, after being horrendously exploited, they bring them back just like that without anything. By MLA, everything is done, especially with respect to the investigation and prosecution of the offenders, tracking the money, following the money,
Leadership is basically built on trust. Trust is the currency of brand, and the leader's brand is what attracts people to him to be inspired by it. Trust is the currency of brand, and the leader's brand is what attracts people to him to be inspired by it. And that trust is built on three key pillars. And the first one is basically being your true authentic self or your credibility. And the Greeks call that your ethos. The second one is the rigor of your logic, the soundness of your discourse. And that's the Greeks called logos. And the third one is your empathy. And that empathy the Greeks call pathos. As a leader, people see and sense from you your distraction towards them. And think about the person that you visit your most distraction to, be it your spouse, be it your colleague, your staff. The one that you visit the most distraction to is the one that you most withhold your empathy, and they can feel it. Think about it. Somebody sitting in front of you and interviewing for a job, and they keep looking at their phone. How likely are you to give them that job? Probably not. But you display that all the time to people that look up to you, and you wonder why they don't see you as an effective leader. The other one, being the rigor of logic, is a bit easier to tackle because throughout life we are always on learning, and relearning. And the best thing to do to stay current, apart from having your deep area of specialization, is to have what we call an inch deep and mile wide knowledge of a whole plethora of things. Wide variety of things you learn about that makes you connected to people on various levels and increases your network. I think the other one, which is the credibility, is the one that we most flaunt. And that is the one that has got to do with being your true authentic self. And you find a lot of people, especially on social media, are trying to portray what they are not. They're trying to fake it. And it comes across very quickly when you're not being your true authentic self. And people pick it up and they don't trust you. If they don't trust you, they don't look up to you as a leader. Leadership is important. It is true leadership that we can nurture people to become future leaders. But we have to do it right. We have to earn it.
The Nigeria's gross domestic savings has continued to decline from 57.16% to 21.66%, according to recent findings. And this has created concern for stakeholders as it has reduced the role of savings in national development. We're on the street to find out what the people's saving and investing cultures are.
Elementary developmental economics highlights a positive correlation between savings and investment. When individuals, business, and government save more money, it provides a larger pool of funds available for investment purposes. This increased availability of savings can lead to higher levels of investment in various sectors of the economy, and developing nations especially need to be very intentional about this. But what is the perception of an average man on the street in this climate with respect to savings? Are the supposed challenges real or constructed to justify or spend it all culture?
Saving culture in Nigeria is very difficult because of the rising of price economically. It's a very difficult thing. So when you save, by the time you save, maybe what your expectation, your goal of being saving, of making a savings, at the end of the day, you are not able to achieve that goal because of the rises of things in the economic.
Saving is a good culture. You save towards your rainy day, towards the unexpected, towards challenges, you can just put down. But for the past 20, 30 years now, and at 80s, Naira was pretty close to $1. People save, and how much, because of that, people have the culture to save.
In Nigeria, a lot of non-savers point to the financial sector distress, high inflationary expectations, and by extension, starving the economy of a crucial source of funds. The argument is that it is practically impossible to save when you barely have enough to eat. But another school of thought asserts that it's more about the deliberate cultivation of the cultural savings than it is about having enough. Man say will never get to that point when he admits that he has enough.
Saving culture is something that must be encouraged because if you do not save, you are going to suffer for it. So it is stated that for every money you make, you should save at least 10% of it, because there will be a time where we call a rainy day, where you may need to fall back to these savings. Like I for one, I save for my salary. I also have investments. I have stocks that I can fall back to in the future.
I don't even see more to save. If I see more it, I even think about to pay, because this country is even hard now. But like, we even see money to save. But now, we make the money and we spend it.
So it's good to save. I save as, because why saving with a little, you save at least a little in case necessity. So it's good to save. Also, why saving is good to invest. We invest so that in the future time, whatever is that's what we meet in the future.
Nigerian government seem to have realized the imperative of inducing the masses to culture of savings and habitual spending extremely hard to shed the habit and pick up the new one, even when they see it as a clear road getting out of the rat race. It is for this reason the government came up with schemes of National Savings Certificate, which was designed to harness idle funds in informal sector, complement liquidity management, serving as a sustainable long-term savings mobilization and inculcating savings culture, especially in low-income families and the unbanked.
Culture is important, although at the moment may not encourage much savings, because the expenditure rate of people is enormous now. But no matter what, you have to save something, because any day you will need to fall back to it. So saving culture must be encouraged, done by every Nigerian, whether you earn or you earn daily. You need to save.
2% of Nigerians, it was reported, owe 90% of deposits in Nigerian banks, or rather some narrative posing a major economic development challenge to the country. We get a sizable chunk of the remaining 8% to imbibe the culture. That, my friend, is the real question. Bufiene, reporting for Souk News.
That Juvi fairness sets the tone for the conversation, talking about savings and spending. One of the holy books taught to the ants to learn how to work in the dry season all day and save for the raining days. Now, you might be undermining their if you don't realize that in the jungle to save outlier, because in the jungle it is eat and. Now, if ants who live in the jungle and the necessity of saving for the rainy day, those of us who claim not to be in the jungle. So if you say you don't earn enough to save, to understand the fact that you have to display qualification to be a homo sapien by today for the rainy days. And that is how I set the tone for today's conversation. I know that people will not to save. They say, oh, after all, abundance that you have that you save. but then be a thing of the mind.
Yes, I quite that. The attitude towards influenced by a number of factors. Your towards saving is shaped by different, which start from your belief system, way to the mind, what you think about saving. So a lot of persons actually think should come from the leftover of what, which speaks to abundance. But you see that is relative. For some persons, want to eat for today. You can save, you have to eat for tomorrow. But for some, you need to have enough to eat for 1 year. You can begin to save. So it starts from the money. And there are reasons why some persons do not save. Persons are big spenders. Big spenders spend more than they earn. The culture of a people actually is their to have power, but they cannot borrow to invest.
A matter of your belief system, like earlier on there. If you believe savings into you, then you probably will not do it. You just have to wait until you get to a point, regular source of income, which you think is, probably dries up. Things happen, will happen, okay? And how you respond to it, whether you imagine being a winner or loser in the end of it all. Now, argue from the point of economics that lose and investors, gain. We'll get to that, but then it's our own personalized conversation. We have the house, we standing banker, an accountant, and designer. Let us establish that the connection is tight. Good morning, Mr. Adeosun. Can you hear me, please?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Brilliant. I can hear you. Thank you for joining us here. Let me note, would anybody ever get to a point where I have enough to save, or is it just a thing?
So thank you very much for inviting me. The tone has been, and I've listened to the lady right with you there. And the truth about the environment, you can never say that there is enough for you to, there's just no, but you just have to do what you have to do. But I think that's to start to set the tone rolling.
Okay.
Okay, in during the night, how do you go about it? Because sometimes we find that inadequate financial education problem here. So educate us, please.
I think not because people don't have financial education. Because if you look at it, when we used to have our local savings, so what we used to call Kolo, all right. So it was just there. So every little money you get, you throw in a 10 naira, you throw in a 100 naira, and one day when you feel that maybe it's about Christmas time, you want to look what exactly is going on, in that money and all that. So it's the way it's always been for us, all right? So, but again, you come and look at the economy as it is, all right? In all of the things that I've heard earlier on, I was just smiling. So the question now is that the fact that it is not enough, is it enough for you not to save? Is not an excuse, all right? Because you have talked about big spenders. There are people who are not going to save because they live beyond their means, all right? So I believe that if you're talking about savings, largely it has to do with personal discipline, okay? Because the money that you earn will never be enough for you. It will never be enough, all right? Yeah, you can become a billionaire tomorrow, you understand? Even billionaires, they save, all right? So if they're not saving, they're putting the money in one kind of investment or the other, so we cannot take away that.
Okay, Mr. Deoshun, you made reference to the fact that when we were much younger than this, some of us were actually saving. We have our local PG banks that we were using back then, 1 naira, 2 naira, 5 naira, 10 naira, and what have you. And at the end of the day, you get to pull it out and spend maybe on Christmas break or something like that. That establishes the fact that Africans know how to save. But data is not showing that we are saving enough in Africa. For instance, now, Africa ranks, Nigeria in particular now, ranks very low on the savings rate of countries. When you compare us to countries like Qatar that has a 58.1% savings rate, and Ireland with 57.6%, and so on and so forth. Now, what are the major barriers to savings in Africa beyond attitude that you spoke of earlier?
So I think the first thing you should have done is you shouldn't even compare us to Qatar. So we should be looking at countries in Africa. Maybe you start from maybe West Africa and probably move towards East Africa.
South Africa outsaves us by that same metric. To answer you directly.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So again, we're not in the same region of South Africa. So we should be talking about Ghana, all right? Maybe Cameroon, all right? So that we can compare likes with likes, okay? So maybe we'll have that conversation at some point. So your colleague there had talked about culture, all right? So it's a culture thing, okay? What changed, all right? We started learning to live beyond our means, okay? We started learning to live beyond our means. I don't know where it started from. So people borrow to go and do parties, but they will not borrow to go and do investments, all right? So everybody wants to do what they call buga, all right? And you're wondering who they are competing with. All right. So once you have that mindset, she talked about mindset earlier as well. When you talk about the mindset, you understand, it starts from there. Okay. I was saying earlier on, before the programs started, that our people will not live within their means. And I don't know why it's like that. So let us assume you earn 30,000 naira. If you earn 30,000 naira, you should probably live in some remote area because it's not a lot of money. But the person that earns 30,000 naira believes that he deserves to earn 100,000 naira or 200,000 naira. So rather than live and say, okay, out of this 30,000 that I earn, I'll take away 3,000 naira for savings and probably not even have a wife because it's not enough for you to spend. But your culture says that, oh, when you get to a certain age, you have to go and marry. People are not understanding that you don't have the money to marry, okay? But they're saying you should marry because culture is saying you should marry. So you have to make up your mind whether you want to follow culture or follow your reality. So that's on one side. On the side of government, I don't want to say that government is everything because it is the government that sets the tone of how a people, you understand, should live their lives. It's the government, okay? And the responsibility of government in this instance is to create an enabling environment for people to be able to have more. Like I tell people, it is not the responsibility of government to create jobs for people. Because in Nigeria, you see people running to government, everybody feels they want to work with government and all. I said, no, that's not the work of government. Government is not an employer of labor. The work of government is to create an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive. Okay, so the government does research and say, okay, we have a certain demographic of young people, that have come to be the largest in the economy. So what are the things that young people like? We're talking digital now, okay? You're talking digital because the young people are Gen Z, they're very familiar with their phones. They're learning a lot of digital skills and all of that. Okay, can we do policies that can encourage these young people, you understand, to start to get employed, to start to make money, you understand? It is when they make money, they can actually save. Like I said before again, a lot of people, if you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, a lot of people are the lowest ebb of Maslow hierarchy of needs. That is the need to feed. So a lot of people can't even feed. So once they cannot feed, all right, how do they save? So government has a role to play. It's the government, all right? If the government does not chart a particular course in terms of the direction to lead the people, it's just dead on arrival. That's the truth.
Okay, let me take you back to what you mentioned earlier, looking at the way savings has been done from the early days, people having a piggy box where they just put in some money, but that wasn't really intentional. Most often it was left over, or maybe somebody has a purpose for which they're saving. But how do you go about intentional saving? Which is the right way to save? Save after you're spending or save before you're spending?
Well, to answer your question, is save before you spend, actually. It's to say, once the money comes into your hand, pick the certain amount of money you want to pick and save. You know, to be honest with you, I was telling somebody before this event, that was about maybe some few days ago. And this is what I say. Once you have your Naira in your hand, I mean, this is what I do. I'm not supposed to say it, but this is what I do. Once I find out that my money is up to $100, I buy dollars straight away. I don't waste my time. Once I know that, oh, this money that I have is about 100. So I just buy dollars and keep in dollars. So when you come and meet me on a normal day that I should give you money, I'll tell you I don't have money. Because truly, I don't have Naira. So how do I give you money? I'm not going to give you money because I don't have the money. Because I'm supposed to give you Naira, right? I'm not giving you dollars. All right. So if you ask me for Naira, I'll tell you I don't have because I really don't have. I don't have the Naira. I hardly have Naira as I'm talking to you here. You do understand? So when it comes to that, it is for you to first take the money. Once you get the money and you find out that, oh, this money is here. Because if you don't save it almost immediately, you are going to spend it. Just leave the little Naira that you need. All right. Take the little Naira that you need and save the remaining. Just save it there. Because like the guys have spoken earlier on, the rainy day is going to come. God forbid you have a health emergency. For example, a health emergency. All right. Are you going to go around begging people that they should come and help you? No, you don't do that. You understand? So to answer your question, you save first before you start to spend.
All right. Thank you for that particular affirmation, which is what some of us actually believe in anyway. Now, I know that the CBN has actually made some interventions in the past to promote the culture of saving in Nigeria. For instance, in 2022, the CBN increased the minimum interest rate on savings from 0.15% to 4.2%, which is to incentivize savings among Nigerians. And also, there is this this idea of national savings scheme and national microfinance fund. But still, we are rated low on savings. Now, when I talk about saving, I am not talking about aggregate saving. I'm talking about the portion of your income, of your disposable income that you put aside, not aggregate sum of the money you put aside, for instance. Now, how can we now still make saving more accessible? Some say that we have a lot of unbanked Nigerians, and when there's a limit to what you can save in your PG bank. How do we make savings more accessible to Nigerians from the banking standpoint now, you being an ex-banker?
Personally, as much as I talk about savings here, the Nigerian economy and all the instabilities do not encourage you to save money. They do not. All right, and this is our reality. So we may be talking about theory and be talking about what the practice is. Now, you're talking about government and policy. In all of your on all of your assertions, have you talked about inflation? Have you talked about the effect of inflation on the Naira that you go and put in a bank? Okay, so people are getting on a daily basis more financially wiser. Okay, so the money that you put in a bank today, when you're talking about banking, the money that you put, I mean, I remember that, again, apart from the fact that we used to have Kolo, years ago, we had a bank called the Federal Savings Bank in this country. So how did the Federal Savings Bank die? I remember very well that I used to put money in Federal Savings Bank because, you know, it was how we just knew that we needed to save money. You know, I mean, as a small child, maybe your father sends you money in school and you have not spent that money. You don't put it in, maybe we're in school, you don't have a Kolo in school. It is Federal Savings Bank, you go and put the money. Okay? Because at that time, let me say that there was responsible governance. Do you get it now? Now, the rate at which there's so much instability in the economy now and government policies, and you put your money, I'll give you an example. If you had money before the fuel increase, for example now, if you had, let's say for example, you had 100,000 Naira before they increased this fuel in this new year, this change of government, what would be the value of your 100,000 Naira after that increment? So there was a shock in policy of government. That policy of government, all right, had crashed the value of the money that you have in your hand by 50%. Can you imagine that gap? You know, I was telling, I mean, so I was trying to do a few things with government this recently, trying to maybe renew my driver's license. I wanted to go to the what do you call it, to renew my international passport. And they give you a price, and you find out that why do they keep increasing the prices of these things? You understand? Abroad, they can tell you that the price of maybe doing one thing is $20, and it can be there for 10 years. They don't just arbitrarily just increase anything. They just don't increase anything because the essence of governance is about the people, nothing more. You're only holding a trust. All right? You're only holding a trust on behalf of the people that look, make life better for us. That is the only thing that government owes the people. It's a job of trust, all right? Make life simple for us. But you're talking about culture of savings here. When it's difficult for people, how do they take money to the bank? When they put the money in the bank, in the next 2 weeks, that money is going to lose value. So like I say, if you're not saving your money in foreign currency, all right, you should put the money in investment.
Good. Now you've got
it's investment.
Back.
So I won't tell anybody now, take your money now and put it in the bank. No, I don't tell anybody to do that.
Okay. We know that saving is one level, investment is another level. Now, the reality of inflation notwithstanding, is not an excuse to not to save. So when you can't save your money in the bank, or from what you said, it is not so wise putting your money just there in the bank because it's not going to appreciate. How do you invest? What are the areas you can invest in, regardless of what you're saving, whether a small amount of money or a huge sum?
Okay, so there are a lot of ways of being able to invest. So depending on, first of all, the amount of money you have. The lowest of them that I think you understand is to belong to a cooperative, for example. So you put in your money there and they tell you, oh, there's one saving, there's one, what do you call it, one interest that comes in. The what do you call it, the cooperative society probably invests in a couple of things, all right, that brings in money, all right? And at the end of the day, there's dividend that they pay to everybody, all right, from that investment that they make. That is the most basic, of it, all right? There are other things, all right? There are so many other things. Yeah, of course, there are also government instruments. Okay, so like I say, this government thing we're talking about here, in those days, you talk about treasury bills, all right? Because you would realize that in terms of value, all right, government instruments do not go moribund, all right? So people feel they want a place where, oh, they can put in their money and know that the money is safe, all right? Even though it might not yield in a lot of profit, so they go to bonds, all right, and buy government bonds and put their money there. But again, you now start to ask yourself that when you put your money in government bonds, okay, you're just putting it there just to save it. So it's a different thing entirely. I mean, I've talked about the dollar savings, okay? So there are a lot of ways that one can choose, to invest one's money, depending on the amount of money that you have. So sincerely speaking, I'm not saying that it's not good to save, no. All right, but you must ask yourself, what is your goal, all right, for these savings? What exactly are you trying to achieve with these savings that you want to do? Are you planning to spend your money on a particular thing? All right, so say, okay, I have what do you call it? Maybe I have a school fees to pay, maybe in December. Is this money for it? Or am I trying to pay for rent? All right, or am I looking for a means of making sure that this money that I'm going to save is going to bring me returns? All right. So all of those considerations are the things that will determine, which of the investments that you say that you want to put your money in.
Okay. The dollar saving you spoke about and your last submission now, talking about considerations of investment, speak to one key factor, which is financial literacy. What's the correlation between how financially literate you are and how much savings you do, and in return, how much investment, profitable investment, you go into? Make the link for us, please.
You can never take away financial education. You can never take it away. I'm almost so certain that as we speak here today, there'll be people who are hearing about you being able to save your money in dollars for the first time. They just hear, oh, there's dollar. Okay, have I ever thought about truly saving this money in dollar? Okay, that's true. I can tell you that. There was a time dollar almost hit 1,000 naira some 6 months ago. So Naira was crashing and crashing and crashing. And what did I do? I took all my Naira and changed to foreign currency. So I didn't have a Naira with me. Now, I didn't have a Naira with me. So I was just managing myself with the little Naira I had. And I saw Naira move, Naira crash more. And at some point, on the money that I saved, I'd gained 100 Naira, within a very short period of time. And I started to think, what's going on? All right, this is really bad. All right. It was good for me, but I looked at the overall economy. So you cannot take away financial literacy, all right, from finance. Okay. Again, maybe because I'm educated enough to be able to think through that process. All right. And that's the reason why you have this kind of program that you have on TV right now, where people need to get themselves educated. All right. Somebody who probably listen to this program now will learn something new, because you have given people the opportunity to come and hear, all right, about possibilities, about opportunities around, this thing. So you cannot take away financial literacy from the knowledge you need to have for you to be able to make a good decision in terms of service. Because I tell you that your money crashing because of inflation can make you lose sleep. It can make you lose sleep. Thank you.
Okay, in order not to lose sleep, we have cooperatives, we have truth systems, but how do we strengthen them so that when people put in money there, they can go to sleep? That is one question. And second, how do we structure the financial institutions in a way that is not just about savings, but there are investments that people can do, and these investments will stand the test of time by yielding benefits? Because it seems to be just savings with financial institutions, but how do we structure them more around investments? I've asked you two questions.
Okay, good. So I give it. Okay, yeah. So I give you. Maybe you probably take the second one first. Let me take the first one. So I give you an example of the cooperatives we talked about. There was a time the government came up with the policy of giving money to cooperatives through CBN. So I remember I was consulting, I was trying to consult with cooperatives on that money, on how they can access that fund. So I'm trying to remember the name, I've forgotten the name. It was during, the time of the CBN governor, Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi. So I saw the opportunity there, and I felt it was good for the cooperatives to take advantage. So the cooperatives did not have, they did not have faith in that program from the government. So I will come to them, I'll speak with them, and they just were telling me that it was not going to work, that it was government and all that. Until I attended one seminar, then when the government, there was a CBN representative. So he was also supposed to speak about the opportunities around that thing. And I can tell you for free that the guy who came from CBN, he was booed out of the hall on that day. People literally booed him. They just told me they didn't want to hear from him. I've never attended an event like that to have that kind of experience where a person will come as a guest, and in the crowd there, they said he has to leave. He just has to leave. And they had to move the guy out of the hall. I said, wow. I mean, it was that bad. So the truth about it is that cooperatives are supposed to be there, you understand, to promote the interest of their people. But the reality again is they cannot do it in isolation. Okay? Because in Nigeria, for example, cooperatives are governed by the government. All right? If you have to start up a cooperative now, you must go and take a form and set up a cooperative. All right? So in doing all the things that you do, and you're trying to promote your members, and you want to grow, when you grow as a cooperative, you have enough, all right? Maybe you're into agricultural exports, maybe it's a finance cooperative, you are doing a job, and all of those things. If the environment too, like I say, is not enabling enough, which is the government's role, there's little that you can do in terms of growth, talk more of being able to save, all right, or put money in investments. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes.
Then please, can you remind me of the second question again?
Okay, the second question was for the financial institutions. How can they structure more around investment instead of focusing a lot on savings?
How can financial institutions structure more on investment? So the only way financial institutions, so it was buying of shares, all right? It was buying of shares. Let me give you an example again. In the United States, you would have instances where you come to a bank, and your bank will tell you that you have X amount of money in your bank, that why don't you take advantage of so opportunity? In fact, they used to tell you to come and take loan. In America, for example, your bankers will tell you that you can access a certain amount of loan because you have done so. All right? So that's to encourage you to be able to, because you have given to us, we also need to be able to give back to you. I do not think it is the same in Nigeria, right? So when you look at the Nigerian banking system, how do they treat their customers? We are talking about financial institutions. The Nigerian banking system comes with you or comes to you as a customer like they're doing you a favor, all right? By keeping your own money. You all know what we went through during the, the change of Naira notes, and how all the Nigerian bank apps crashed. All right?
All right.
They were not prepared for the sudden change.
All right, we're out of time.
The CBN itself.
We're out of time, sir. Okay. Apologies. You've actually said a lot today, and we are better off than we started. I do hope Nigerians and even Africans watching us from everywhere in the world are able to pick one or two lessons that can promote the culture of saving. There is a positive correlation between savings and investment. That's what you've established there. And thank you very much, Mr. Olani Adeosun, an ex-banker and accountant and a product designer. And let me add to your title, you are now a wise saver because you dollarize and do some other things with your money. Thank you very much. Okay, we go on a very short break now, and when we return, we look at the NYSC. They turned 50 in May. Let's look at the pains, the gains, and the future of NYSC in Nigeria. That and many more will be done when we're back from this break. Don't go anywhere.
NYSC is a prominent program initiated by the Nigerian government to involve recent graduates in nation building and development, and it has played a crucial role in fostering national unity, encouraging youth involvement in nation building, and promoting cultural exchange among participants from diverse backgrounds. So far, what are the impacts of NYSC in Nigeria? Let's explore. The Nigerian Civil War of 1967 to 1970 left deep ethnic and regional divisions which the General Yakubu Gowon's administration had to find a way to mend. The National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, was one of his answers. Established on May 22, 1973 under Decree No. 24. The mandate was, and still is, to heal wounds and foster national unity, integration, and development in the country. By design, graduates from Nigerian tertiary institution of learning are posted to states different from their state of origin to serve their fatherland for a period of 1 year and to mingle with people from diverse backgrounds, religious and political affiliations. While national unity remained the core focus, the 1 year intertribal mingling leaves participants in the scheme with different experiences, which are usually a blend of anxiety and excitement.
It is a good project. It's a good initiative for national integration. All right. The intention is to let people serve places other than their own location, so that they can be able to know the nitty-gritty area. That is, you leave your own, you serve in another person's place, learn their language, you can eat their food, you know, you can socialize.
Because apparently I think I got a broader and a deeper insight on other types. Like normally I don't have Igbo friends, but NYC I got some Igbo friends. So I think it's promotes integration.
Of course it has, actually. NYSC has impacted a lot of people. It allows us to explore different regions, different states, you know, and help us to see the beauty in diversity in culture, diversity in religion, diversity in regions. There's this beauty that comes with having exploring different parts of the state and different parts of the country, different, you know, seeing their culture, their live, their way of life, and their way of doing things.
It's foster unity. It's foster unity because initially I don't know where Bayelsa was. I never knew anything about Bayelsa, but I served in Bayelsa. I stayed for 1 year and it was really, really interesting. Lots of people. I even got job opportunity in Bayelsa.
By a lot of metrics, the NYS has delivered on its core mandates as tribal marriages, businesses, partnership, and diffusion of cultures have been sustained over time. However, the scheme has not been without its challenges.
The major one should be transportation. That is a big issue, especially in these times. So that's how everything is.
Challenges I know that's really affecting in NYSC corps are insecurity.
It has been 50 years since the establishment of the National Youth Service Corps, but that is standing the test of time. There are calls in some quarters of the federal government to take another look at the scheme, with a view of upgrading the mode of operation to be in tune with modern realities. Aureola James, Souk News.
Thank you. you very much, Arelua, for the report on NYC. The scheme turned 50 on May 22. Now, that scheme was established on May 22, 1973. For so many who have been fortunate to be under the scheme, they have one story or the other to tell. No doubt, NYC has brought lots of gains to Nigeria regarding the mandate and aim, which is to foster unity amongst Nigerians. So, a lot of Nigerians have got to be able to share in the culture of other places that they were posted to. It opened your eyes to the way other Nigerians live life. And but that is not to say that NYC hasn't brought some pains, sadly. We're talking about the pains and the gains of NYC today, because if we are to look in the future, beyond 50 years, because there will be calls for NYC to be scrapped. So let's look at the effectiveness first of the scheme, and that will determine the submission, whether or not it is to be scrapped or it is to continue, and how do we work around it. I have Sam Oroje, who is Director, Policy, Research and Development, Femi Wash Limited, owners of Sook News, and also they are a public relations company. Thank you, Sam Oroje, for joining us this morning.
My pleasure, Blessing, and thank you, Aya.
I'd like to begin by asking, when did you serve? Were you a part of the NYC at any time?
Yes, indeed. I served in Kwara State with the University of Ilorin Demonstration Secondary School some 33 years ago.
Wow.
3 decades plus.
Okay. Well, 50 years down the line, Nigerian youths are still answering the clarion call. I did mine sometime in 2006. And I thought you would ask me about my experiences.
Well,
the guard room experience. I slept in the guard room 4 times in 3 weeks.
What did you do?
Because I was always sitting when I should be jogging.
Oh, lazy.
I was always sitting. Not lazy. I am just a civilian. I don't want to call myself something civilian. I'm not a civilian. I mean, sorry, I'm just a civilian. I'm not a military person.
Well,
and all those,
you know what they
those
say,
early morning drills. Blessing. Let me share my
NYC.
testimony.
Your testimony?
My testimony, really.
Of,
those early morning drills were a no-go area for me. And the endurance trek was not funny. It was not funny for me. But all in all, I think I enjoyed the entire experience, apart from the 3 weeks orientation, which for me was, it was just not in tune with my physiology.
Okay, before I get back to Sam, you know what they say in camp? There are places you're supposed to be. And what that 3 weeks orientation also teaches is how to comply with a regimented lifestyle.
Essentially.
It teaches you time management and endurance. So if you're supposed to be at a particular place, maybe on meditation ground, and you're somewhere else sleeping like Ayo was doing, they tell you that you were wrong. And you will hear that clearly from the OBS.
If you're sleeping, you're wrong.
You were wrong.
Could you
So
just...
share your experience, please.
Okay, let's have you, 33 years ago, what was it like for you? And how did you benefit from it?
I think I still have some nostalgic feeling of my experience of MIC days, some 33 years ago. What is very key with that scheme was that it brought people from various universities and polytechnic together. And I think that was a unifying force for the scheme. But fundamentally, before we go into the core issues of how the NYC is, we must look at what brought about it. It was put in place by General Yakubu Gowon, which is a policy of the 3R rather, of reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. These were a kind of transitional justice mechanism to heal the wounds from the Nigerian Civil War. Therefore, it was done to inspire national unity, particularly among people that were young who were just coming out of the university. I think that indeed was a very inspiring moment for me, and I still cherish the relationship which that scheme brought about for me during my NYC days. And I think it was a very good scheme, and I think it's still a very good scheme going forward.
I think for me, it's the khaki advantage that I had. When you wear, they call us government Peking, because you are children of the federal government of Nigeria when you're still wearing that green khaki and your brown shoe. Now, as a corps member, there are zones you can go to and you get a pass easily. There are ideas you can test without the fear of drowning. You can actually test the waters freely without the fear of drowning. And you have this kind of support system that you don't get to find in the outside world. And that 1 year shields you in a way from the harsh reality of the outside world, because they believe you are still young, you are a rookie, and you're still learning. That for me was the biggest take home for the entire 1 year that I served where I served. So people and core members are making massive gains from the khaki advantage for those who know how to use it.
Well, apart from the khaki advantage where you get some freebies, you get into the markets in some areas, because in other areas that could be a reason for people to exploit you because they feel you're a stranger, so you know your way around much in that vicinity. But for some areas, once they see that khaki, you get some freebies, you get to the market, and then goods are sold to you at discounted price because they feel, oh, they're just out of school, or some person just wants to celebrate you for being a graduate, and so you get some free things. But one thing that I also like about the NYC is the concentration on development, because at the orientation you get different agencies come to teach you skills, come to impact knowledge on how you can progress. But the thing is that we often find that once people get out of NYC, getting to do a lot with the skills that they acquired while in camp becomes a problem. I don't know if it's because some of those, it's just like everybody's coming to teach you something. Everybody's coming to teach you something. They're flooded with so much, and not at that point in time, they've not been able to actually identify what they want to do, or it's about the funds to go about business because there's several skills you're taught in NYC. You're taught bead making, you're taught shoe making, several kinds of skills. But the ability to actually progress the skill beyond camp, that's one area that I have a problem with.
Maybe Sam will speak to that. Maybe you will speak to that.
Essentially, during my own time, I think it's the National Directorate of Employment that had an interface. But over time, that has changed, and I know that they acquire some skill set during the training in the NYC. But some of those skill sets that the NYC train you on is to enable you to be able to assess the job market more meaningfully. So that's a welcome development, and I think that skill set that is given to a core member should continue, so that those will help them to get into the employment market quickly.
Okay, so we have a number of young people who are standing by via Zoom to join the conversation today. We chose to, it's their day because they are young and they are still enterprising. Many of them have a very recent experience. So while they are still, getting set to join the conversation, let us just advance this. The NYSC has its own criticisms, so to speak. People talk about the fact that, like you mentioned, or you alluded to in your last submission there is no transfer of skill from the camp to the outside world. Yes. Everything happens in the camp and seems to end in the camp there, meaning the essence of it is lost, essentially. Like this regimented lifestyle that you mentioned, which is meant to instill discipline on participants. After the 3 weeks camp or orientation, some go back to normal. I remember that the big will wake you up by 4 a.m. Yes. Whether you slept 2 a.m. or that was immaterial. By 4 a.m. you should be awake. What do you have? People go to work late now because they overslept.
Mm-hmm. Well, for that of the regimented lifestyle, I cannot blame it on the NYC because 3 weeks is all they have to have all the coppers in one place. After that, a lot of them are posted to their primary place of assignment. So it now bodes on the organization to which they are posted to provide them accommodation, or in some cases, the local government that they are assigned to provide them with accommodation. So except you have a common accommodation for people, to implement a regimented lifestyle becomes difficult. So 3 weeks is not enough for you to make something a habit or a culture for people who perhaps all their lives and had to do things based on their terms or at their time. That's for the regimented lifestyle. And then we talked about some other criticisms about the NYC.
Like the cost.
Some people believe that the cost of running the program is far too much compared to the gains. Now, this is aimed at fostering unity, and so people believe that if you have to spend so much in sending people on a 1-year service just to go to other places, leave, because let's take a look at what people are actually doing in the space of that 1 year. Where are they posted to? So is there a way to come around it that you don't have to spend much in terms of providing feeding for them in the space of 3 weeks, in terms of having to look into their accommodation needs for the period that they will be there, because not all of them actually have accommodations provided from the organizations they are sent to. Well, I think that's one thing that should be looked into, the cost of having the program. But would we have it otherwise? Would we say because it's expensive, and so the aim of fostering unity, we should not look at that? Because if you think about it, it has brought so much gain in a country where we have so many tribes and there are so many ethnic divides. But once people go on National Youth Service Corps, you find that to a great extent, their orientation changes. Their acceptance of people and tolerance of other tribes is increased.
Okay, so let's bring in 3 young people who, some of whom actually, served recently. I mean, two of them, I beg your pardon, they are ready via Zoom to talk to us. Can we have their faces and let's hear their voices first and foremost before we establish that particular interaction with them? Okay, good morning, Fred. On the left of my screen is Fred, and on the right is Israel. Gentlemen, welcome on board. Could you just speak to the microphone? Let me know that you can hear us, and we can hear you too.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning.
Okay, good morning, Fred. Israel, you.
Good morning. It's nice to be with you.
Oh, okay. I'd like to start with you, Israel. That's Israel Adeyemi. And okay, you have served really, and I want to assume that you had your own, peculiar experiences. What would you say, as briefly as possible, were the gains from NYSC participation for you? What did you gain? What did you bring apart from the discharge certificate? What other things did you bring back from the scheme?
Okay, so while I served in the north, and it was a very good experience for me because I had the opportunity of meeting new people, and it was also an avenue for me to develop myself, to develop my skill, because of the kind of environment I find myself there. So it was a very good experience for me personally.
All right, for you, Fred, besides the enjoyment in camp, getting to meet different people in camp, did you acquire any skill during the NYSC?
That's for Fred.
Were you able to acquire any skill from trainings at the orientation camp?
Yes, funny enough. Yeah, funny enough, I can be able to put together a bag and a shoe. Those are the 2 skills I was able to during the entrepreneurship program. That was one of the things we were taught. At least I can go to the market and buy those components, and from start I can be able to put them all together. Those are quite the 2 skills I was able to acquire during the entrepreneurship training.
Okay, I'll return to you, gentlemen, for a while. Let me just ask Mr. Sam Orokuji here. Now, she was talking about the cost of implementing the scheme, of running the scheme, as against the output. Do you think we need to revamp the modus operandi of NYSC as a scheme now, within the context of making them more economically productive, as in, apart from just bearing the cost as a nation, should we be deploying these young people in more productive endeavors that can probably yield the cost of training them for 1 year?
I think from my own personal perspective, I think the cost of running the NYSC is not really much if you look at the benefits of that national integration, which is essential for nation building. On the other hand, I think for like every other institution, you need to make some reforms. So those reforms in terms of what the NYSC can do in order to increase its efficiency. During my time, I think I served with the farm settlement that was owned by the NYSC. I think we're involved in the production of Gary, which were now sold to the public. So therefore, they can upskill some of those enterprises within the NYSC scheme that can provide some income for the scheme. But by and large, the cost of nation building is not very expensive, in my personal view. Therefore, those who are criticizing the scheme that it should be scrapped based on the cost, I doubt if the cost is really outweigh national unity and national development. Therefore, in my personal view, I think the cost of the scheme is still reasonable to the extent of national integration.
Now, having people come from different parts of the country, graduates for that matter, they also have skills that it can impact. Now, let me talk to Israel. In your opinion, what do you have to say about the postings, the deployment of core members? Do you think that it is strategic enough so that not only can the core members gain maybe knowledge, but they also make meaningful contributions to areas that you have posted? Linking that to your own experience, what were you posted to, and do you think that was a good posting for you?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Every graduate at the point of graduation looks forward to the posting. While I got my posting, because I was posted to the north, so they were agitated. In fact, my parents didn't even want to allow me to travel then because of the situation of the country. But because I really want to serve the country, and I want to have more exposure, lead the forwards of my state, so I accepted it and I traveled to the north. So it was a different environment for me. I was able to learn other people's culture, which has
I'm talking about your place
affected the
of
way
primary
I
assignment.
reason.
The place to which you were assigned, or the organization to which you were assigned, did you find it a suitable one for you, considering what you had studied in school? And do you think that area should be looked into? Personal place or primary assignment that corpers are assigned to, so they can also make meaningful impact there?
Yes, personally, that's also very good to me because I served in the school, and I believe one of the sectors that needs young graduates to teach or to transfer knowledge is the education sector. So I served in the education, I served in the school, and I was able to impact. I was able to transfer the knowledge I gained to the student. In fact, some of them are now graduates, and I still have their contact with me that we chat together. So I think it's very strategic for me.
Okay, Fred, this question is for you. Let's look at skill deployments in service and post service. You mentioned that you could put together shoes and bag. I like to assume that putting together, in your own words, means being able to produce local shoes or local bags as part of what you have learned when you were serving. Okay, why have you not stepped it up into meaningful business? Is it because you don't believe in what you've learned, or is it fund, or what is it?
Okay, after NYC, the cycle usually ends when it comes to availability of capital, when it terms of having access to loans or developing the skills, because what they actually do in camp is to give you the basics, that's the foundation of it. So it's left for you to say, okay, this is what I want to do, and get the necessary capital involved and expand. That if you are looking at having interest in that area. So I still know many of my colleagues that to date have also explored that area, and they at least make what they wear. They make what they wear. As the most of the shoes they put on, they make it themselves. So it's continuity. I think it's more personal interest. If you feel that that is what you want to do personally, then you can pursue a career. You can look at a career in that aspect. Definitely, it's not going to be, for me, it's something, if I want to get my shoe done, I can decide, okay, let me go to the market, get those materials at low cost, and fix them myself. So, but for many, they decided to go into it in large scale, so decided to use it for their own personal gain. So I think access to capital and interest also comes in at this point.
All right, Mr. Sam, in 1 minute, for the scheme to have done 50 years, it means the government has been so committed to it, to have funded it over the last 50 years. Going forward, what are the areas to improve on the National Youth Service Corps?
I think for me, thank you very much indeed. I think for me, like every institution, it needs some reform in terms of how the postings are done. Originally, the posting was open, but I hear that most people are now posted to secondary school. That's good in one breath. Then another challenge is that because of conflict in some part of the country, some parents are agitating that their people should not be posted to those places. But I think the scheme itself needs to re-engineer itself by making opportunity for people to serve. Then in addition to that, I'm one of those who believe that the number of days spent at the camp is ridiculously small. I think they should increase the number of time to enhance some military regimental training efficiency, particularly among the youth. So I think they can upscale the time spent in the orientation camp for more than 3 weeks. Then I think they should not force people into one particular sector in terms of posting. By and large, I think the scheme is okay. It's been sustainable, and we think that they can do more in the future because it's actually for national integration and national development, and is the responsibility of government to integrate its citizens, particularly in an era where ethnicity and religious bigotry has become a commonplace in Nigeria. Therefore, the scheme will help to assuage the fear of every Nigerian when they move around the country.
I say yes to integration. 3 weeks, added weeks in camp, apart from 3 weeks, I say a very big no in capital letters. Because a soldier is a soldier, a civilian is a civilian, and I am a civilian, okay? All right, that is how much we can take today on the show. A big thank you to all the guests who are featured today. Sam Orouje, thank you very much. Osama, who is one of us, also thank you. And to the young men that I just featured today, I want to say a very big thank you. Blessing, I won't forget you. Thank you for standing by me all through the show
Even
today.
as I won't forget to thank God on your behalf that you're done with the NYSC. Because giving Mr. Sam's recommendation, you would have had to do maybe 2 months of
drilling.
Yes, and drilling. I am Blessed AJ. Thank you so much for your company, and we'll see you again tomorrow, 7 a.m. West African time on the Early Exchange.
Commuters who use the Eko Akwongo Bridge had some many happy days when the bridge reopened after over 15-month closure. However, there comes sudden end as the federal government announced another 40 days closure of the island-bound lane of Alaka Kose Igamu section of Eko Bridge, starting from